In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about freelancing in Dubai. This is a topic that comes up from time to time, with questions often asked about whether it is possible, and if it is, then how does one go about getting started, and what are some of the formalities involved? Very often, many folk who are thinking about becoming a freelancer in Dubai have limited resources and budgets available to them, and so it can be a bit tricky at times for them to get some good, sound information and/or advice on this topic. So I've made this short video to provide an overview of freelancing in Dubai, and it might be of interest to those who would like to learn a little bit about it and/or potentially explore it as an option for themselves. A point that I'd like to make at the outset is that this video is called Freelancing in Dubai. However, the principles that I'm going to discuss here are generally applicable right across the UAE. So if you're interested in freelancing in any of the other Emirates that make up the UAE, then the principles that I discuss here are broadly similar and relevant to freelancing in those other Emirates as well. With all that said, let's get started. Welcome back. I'm Yusuf Ahmed and I'm an international lawyer originally from Scotland and the UK. My boutique practice specialises in all aspects of commercial law. My work often involves international or multi-jurisdictional elements. If you require any advice, guidance or assistance with anything, then feel free to get in touch. Freelancing has become more and more popular over the years, with a growing number of people deciding to go down the route of becoming a freelancer, in many cases not just to be their own boss, but also for lifestyle reasons, as freelancing might be better suited to their own individual circumstances. This has no doubt been helped by so many advances in technology, which has opened up freelancing as an option for a wide range of people coming from different business sectors and industries. Thanks to technology, so many people now from so many different business backgrounds can at least consider freelancing. And with the advent of online freelance platforms where freelance services can be easily bought and sold, it is probably easier than ever to take a step or a leap into freelancing. In some of my other videos, I have talked about and covered things like setting up a business in Dubai or the UAE, often in the form of a corporate entity such as a limited liability company. However, if setting up a separate business entity or a company is not feasible for someone, perhaps because of the costs and red tape involved, or because the business itself is small scale and essentially revolves around a person themselves, then freelancing can be considered as an option. Therefore, the first point to note is that it is possible to be a freelancer in Dubai. And the second point to note is that there are two essential things that you need to have in order to be able to legally operate as a freelancer in Dubai. Number one, you need to have a residence visa for the UAE. And number two, you need to have an appropriate freelance permit issued by a relevant licensing authority. This basically functions as a license allowing you to carry out your freelance business activity as an individual. If a person is already resident in the UAE and has a residence visa through sponsorship from their parent or their spouse, then the first box is already ticked for them and all they will need is an appropriate freelance permit. For someone who is already resident in the UAE but has an employment residence visa and wants to do a bit of freelancing on a part-time basis or on the side, then they will need to seek permission from their employer before they are able to do so. And for those who are not existing residents of the UAE but would like to obtain residency, then the good news is that you can apply for a residence visa at the same time as applying for a freelance permit. Currently, there are several free zones that offer a freelance permit and which also include an option to add a residence visa on top if required. Some of the notable free zones in Dubai that offer freelance permits include Dubai Media City, Dubai Studio City, Dubai Knowledge Park, Dubai Design District, and Dubai Production City. In addition, there are free zones in other Emirates that also offer freelance permits. For example, Ajman Free Zone, Fujairah Creative City, Ras Al Khaimah Economic Zone, which is also known as Rakez, and 2454 in Abu Dhabi. When deciding which free zone to get a freelance permit from, you will need to ascertain if the free zone can issue a permit that covers the intended freelance activity, as this is something that will vary between each of the different free zones that offer them. In other words, some free zones will be able to issue a freelance permit for certain freelance activities, whereas others might not. Therefore, inquiries will typically need to be made in order to determine what freelance permits are available and where they are available from. The free zones that offer freelance permits will each have their own set of requirements for issuing a permit. Some might have more conditions than others, and these conditions can change from time to time. A usual requirement for a freelance permit is that an educational qualification is normally required, such as a university degree, and the business activity normally needs to relate to this qualification. For example, a freelance journalist might have to show a qualification in journalism. It really just depends on what the free zone considers to be an appropriate qualification that ties up with the permit that they issue. In the absence of a university degree, in some cases other formal qualifications can be acceptable. However, once again, the freelance permit would normally need to relate to the qualification in some way. So for example, a sports coach might have coaching badges or certificates, and in turn should be able to obtain a freelance permit to work as a freelance sports coach on the back of such certification. Costs for a freelance permit will vary between the free zones. As a rough ballpark figure, the standard costs currently range between 6,000 to 10,000 dirhams. I think 2454 in Abu Dhabi has previously offered freelance permits for under 1,000 dirhams. It might be that they still do. However, at the time that I briefly looked at it, there was a very limited number of freelance activities offered by it, which essentially meant that it was restricted to those freelancing in very specific trades. The costs and pricing within each of the free zones can change frequently, and an important factor on the cost side of things is whether an individual will require a residence visa with the freelance permit, as this will typically increase the cost a bit. Finally, and just to summarise, there are certainly options available for freelancing in Dubai. It might appeal to some folk and could be a good option for them if it suits their own individual circumstances and ties in with a desire to become a freelancer. And overall, it can be a relatively quick and cost-effective way for an individual to set up and operate a small business in Dubai as a freelancer and ultimately live and work in the city in this way. Alright, that's it for this one. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions or queries on the subject matter of this video, or would like to learn more about anything that I have discussed here, then feel free to get in touch. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.